One producer replied, and this is a direct quote: "The only thing is that it's not about the music anymore. It's about popularity. And if you aren't making what's popular or look the part or know the right people, odds are stacked against you." I'm not even going to argue that in order to be popular in music, it has to do with popularity, because it does. What's going down? Welcome to No Pain, No Gain. This is so weird saying that. I still need to get the logo done. Thanks, Dame, for the name idea. Thank you, Erinn, for reaffirming it. Dame right now actually is not here, not because of some conspiracy or money laundering scheme, but because he actually is. I believe this week he's talking more with radio, so we'll have more updates about the actual MEC. Hopefully, we'll see something more concrete. Um, but Erinn, thank you for being here. And I just want to continue the energy, and I it's hard to do without you and Dame. So I appreciate both of you.
I agree. I miss Dave though. Dave got to come back. I feel like he's the busy Hollywood man now.
Yeah, things kind of switched up. It used to be you, and you were jumping on planes every time we have to record, and now Dame is, I don't know, it's a role reversal.
Yeah, but it should be a good one. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so today, and I sent you the it looks like Wendy Day was out and about, as she is, and took some photos of some interesting chart data. And this has to do with just trends in the music business, period. I don't know if this is an alarming trend. I don't know what to think about it, but that's why, I guess, why we're talking about it. But I'll share the data. It looks like she just took photos of the charts. What we're seeing on this particular chart, the number of top 10 hits since the year 2000, and then the length of their success, of their chart positions. This color corresponds to total top 10 hits, right? So we're seeing an increase in top 10 hits, but we're seeing a decrease in length. For some reason, like around 20, what is this, like 2018, there was a jump. And now we're seeing, this rise, this sharp rise in only 1 week top 10 charting tracks. So to summarize it, we're getting way more top 10 hits, but they're not lasting very long. They're lasting on average 1 week. And
I don't know, because if you go back to that slide, it looks like there was only a rise for a little bit of time.
yeah, right here, right? It looks like otherwise this is pretty average. And then even back in the early 2000s, it was super low, right?
So I'm confused what the point is because I do see a rise in top 10 hits. For 20 weeks, I see it's being like I'm looking at all of these. The only one that looks like it's on like I guess somewhat of a severe decline is for 10 weeks, like year over year, it seems like that's dropping. And it looks like there's a huge spike in the what is that for 1 week? So
I think what's interesting is that the total number of top 10 hits and the top 10 hits that only last a week are almost these identical trend lines.
yep.
And there's this incredibly sharp increase here. And we're starting to see it right around here, which I imagine corresponds with the popularity of TikTok.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the theories, because here we're looking at 1 week Billboard top 10 hits. Sorry, yeah, top 10 hits since 2000. And that's an interesting chart because we are seeing a lot of variation, from like especially around 2005. I don't know what happened there. Was that when everyone claimed the music business was over, and then
I
something
think that's
happened?
right when MP3 started, right? Like
Yeah.
2003, 2004, because I was in middle school.
Okay, so around then there was no way for MP3 consumption because all of that stuff was off the grid. So
Right.
people were listening to a ton of music, but it's not like now where Spotify streams count towards Billboard. So I don't know what happened in 2015, but Oh my God. Then
I feel like
suddenly,
that's streaming right there. It's 2015, right? That's when it got really
yeah.
popular. So
Okay.
it was
So
like
this, yeah.
MP3s and then yeah, MP3s and then streaming.
So this is, we're only looking at 1 week Billboard Hot 100 top tens. So maybe they were lasting longer here. So this chart's only giving us some of the picture. So here are the 5 week plus. They're like on a pretty steady downward trend, but not a drop. And then 10 plus week, I don't know. This seems like a less alarming trend.
Right.
And
That's
that's
how I
what I want to talk about. 20 week plus, this seems like a fairly positive trend. I don't know what the hell happened here. I guess the pandemic. I don't know.
that's before the pandemic, it looks like.
If this is 2020, then this would have been 2019, right? So that's right
Yeah.
in the middle of the pandemic. So we were seeing a lot of staying power.
Ah, March 2020 is when everything shut down. So if that's the year of 2019, that's just a big spike.
Mm. Oh, I thought we shut down in 2019.
Now, March 2020,
Okay.
I'll never forget when all my money flew out the door
Yeah, you
because
remember.
I had hella tours lined up.
Oh, yeah, we had an MEC tour actually lined up, and we had to cancel that.
Yeah, I had like 6 tours and I had already spent the money for 3 of them.
Oh, oh shit. If you want to talk about that, that seems like a interesting tangent.
I mean, I feel like I've talked about it a little bit in old episodes, but yeah, it was young business owner. I was financing everything on my personal credit cards, and I'm like honestly still suffering the repercussions of that just because like
Hmm.
I had to take out personal loans. It messed up my credit a bit. Not crazy, fortunately. I like was like in this close to the 750 range. I'm not there anymore, but it's not bad. I can still do things. But yeah, I was just swiping because I would, I'm the especially back then I was the type to buy out the venue and just go sell the tickets. I know everybody's hearing about that now from the Russell, but that's just like I've always bought out venues and just sold whatever tickets I wanted. And so so one tour was like a hybrid tour where I had promoters and venues I was buying out. So I basically had bought out the venues for most of the first tour and part of the second tour. And then I had rented the vehicles and I had bought the flights. So most of the vehicles, like because of everybody freaked out, you couldn't get your vehicle. Like I got like a portion of it back, but the flights, I was buying flights for 4 artists and a 3-man crew. So pretty light. It was like 7 of us, but I bought 7 tickets to like 10 different cities. Do you know what I'm saying? And then it was like all you get is the credit back. And so it's like that's thousands and thousands of dollars worth of just flights that I wasn't going to recoup with the tickets. Then I had to refund everybody's tickets through Eventbrite, and Eventbrite still kept their fee during the pandemic. That was a whole thing. So it was like, yeah, like 20 plus grand of actual cash gone. And then some of the stuff came back in credits, some of the stuff came back in other things. So some people were like, "Oh, you only lost like 22 grand. That's not crazy." And I'm like, the year before I made 36 grand. You know what I'm saying? So it was like I lost more than I had even like basically made the year before. And then that next year on paper, I made like $12,000. So it was rough. Very, very rough. Very rough. So I don't know. I definitely remember March 2020 because I remember them announcing that South by was shutting down. And I immediately called my business partner and I was like, this is going to last way longer than we think. And he was like, you think so? I was like, for sure. Because they're shutting down something that provides like half of the income to the city of Austin. And then the NBA followed maybe like, I feel like 6 to 8 hours after that call, the NBA, NFL, all that. And I was like, yeah, this shit is about to be at least a year. And everybody was like, well, why do you? I'm like, all the money people are pulling out, they're willing to take their money out of this. Like this shit is not gonna be no 2 weeks. And I knew it right away. So yeah, it was a rough time. I feel like I've recovered a bit for sure, changed business direction. I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. I definitely won't be leveraging that much personal debt to make stuff happen, especially for fickle artists. But it's something that was a very, very, very hard lesson. And I mean, who knew? It's an act of God. Like, who knew we were going to go through a pandemic? I'd never heard of really a pandemic before we actually went through it. But yeah, it was very tough. Very, very tough. I'm way more of a resilient person because of that experience. And I think that I know I'm built for this industry because I survived and now I'm on the other side. So even right now, when I am struggling to figure it out because the way that business is going, I'm confident that I will be able to because I was able to make it through the pandemic.
Okay, so lessons learned. What would you have done differently just in terms of giving advice to people who are in your position where, because a lot of people are just investing their personal funds into careers that they manage, labels that they run, that kind of thing. That's not something you would do anymore. I take it.
Yeah, I mean, I had well, I think maybe just one LLC at the time, but I just never took out business credit. I didn't know enough about it. My business partner now is really, really intelligent when it comes to finances, but specifically business money. And so yeah, when we started Build Your Own Dreams, we immediately took out a business credit card. And now we have a couple plus some lines of credit, like secured credit from our banks. But I was like, my company doesn't make a lot of money. I have a job. Let me just put it on my credit card. So one, I would say put it on, get some business credit. Um, Two, I mean, part of it, I just would have never known again. So like, I'm not blaming myself too much for that. But I think something that I should have done better is made sure that I had the buy-in like I needed from the artist because there's no way that I should have been financing everything, especially all of the merchandise. So I financed all the flights, all of the upfront tour cost, all of the merchandise, and it was going to end up being, like 50-50 split on the tour profit wise with the artist. But even still, that was a conversation that I had to have after I financed everything. And I'm like, hey, I'm putting up all the money. I can't just take a manager's percentage. And that was a whole argument. So then even so, I should have never, if I'm taking 50%, he should be putting up 50%. Otherwise, I take 100% and pay you as talent because this is now my tour. You know what I'm saying? So I think even things like that, having somebody in with you to leverage or to like take on the debt load, if it doesn't work out, because if the pandemic hadn't happened and I wasn't able to defer some of those payments because the credit card companies were like, okay, we get it. We can lower your minimum monthly payment. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that could have been a very, very, very detrimental situation for me. Unfortunately, I had savings. So I wasn't like I didn't want to dump all my savings into paying for that credit card expense. So I was just making minimum payments, just trying to, keep my credit decent. But yeah, I would say young managers, don't be so eager to create opportunities for your artists that you don't make your artists buy into the opportunity as well. And then I would say, like even right now, I'm kind of reminding myself, like, don't freak out. It's gonna work out. I remember the amount of anxiety that I was experiencing at that time and just freaking out. Like, not even because of the pandemic, just because of the massive, like, I lost so much actual cash and I was devastated. And then I was thinking about like my future and just all these different things. And I'm like, again, right now, trying to remind myself it's all going to pan out. So it's like, it's okay that the business has, some debt. It's okay that I'm not super liquid right now. The most tangible asset that I have is my brain. And because that's still functioning and because I'm still willing to wake up every morning and figure it out, it's going to figure itself out. But it's definitely, even right now, with all the knowledge that I have and all that I've gained from that, right now, I feel almost a similar kind of pressure to perform because it's like it's do or die. There's nobody else that I can call to be like, hey, can you? And I think that was what I felt the first time. It was like, there's nobody who's going to get me out of this situation. Now I'm aware of that. So it doesn't add as much weight to me, but it's still just like, damn, this is what I signed up for as an entrepreneur. It's like, nobody's going to relieve this pressure or write me a check or whatever. Like, I have to figure this shit out. And so I'm just leaning into the process. So it's funny that we're talking about this now because I feel like right now I'm very much mirroring some of the issues that I had back then. I think I'm just way more equipped to handle them because of what I went through in 2020.
I don't want to jump too into my experiences with that, but yeah, it was a crazy start to the year. What can I say other than I agree, and I think everyone's going to have their ups and downs in entrepreneurship, period. But the music business, as we've said before, in the grand scheme of big picture investment advice, it's not even top 50. So, it is
The
what
absolute worst investment you can ever make. I don't know if there's a worse investment. I
NFT.
actually, I like, I, it's the, I'm trying to think of something that's worse. Like, I think the only thing that's worse is no, because I'll say burying your money in the ground, but no, at least it'll still be there when you dig it up.
Yeah.
Like, the music industry it's terrible. And I think if I would have known going in the lack of return on investment that I would have, even this amount of years in, I don't think I would have ever gotten into this. And if I had, I would have done it as a hobbyist and committed to something else and kind of just dabbled in this industry. I have way more knowledge and skill set and resources because of it, but I don't know if I'm necessarily better because of it. Time will tell, but I don't know if I'm better for leaning fully into the music business and being broke for most of my adulthood trying to figure it out.
Well, yeah, and that's the narrative that we're constantly fighting, which is that all you need is money and suddenly you have a career. But you hear so many people saying, "Oh, all this music is trash. I could do that. I just need $100,000 to invest in it." By all means, do it. I mean, if all I needed was $100,000 to become the next Future or the next Lil Nas X or the next whoever's charting right now, too. See, whoever, damn right, I would go out and get that $100,000 and I would invest it and become a multimillionaire.
Yes, exactly that. If it was that easy, I would
Yeah,
have got the 100,000 and it would have been flipped by now.
I would have been had the because you build your credit up, and then suddenly you're in a position where you can get that kind of money as a loan. You invest it in whatever people think, oh, just put it in payola. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna make a song that is completely trash, because that's what everyone says. All the hit songs, and we can get back to Billboard, but all the hit songs are trash. Okay, cool. I'll make a trash song, take this $100,000 I got on loan, drop it into payola, whatever that means, and sit back and just watch the money pile up on my lap and just big ass bricks, just $1 million here, one brick, two. Like that's how the music business works, according to people on the outside looking in. And it's just, you hope those people never get fast money to invest in the music business, because they're going to be disappointed.
Disappointed and in debt.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, and then the longer that you're in it, the more you run across trust fund babies. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like,
And they just lose money. But they don't care.
yeah, but people think that, like you said, it's just about the money because they think that, oh, nobody's ever, oh, this person is on because they had money. These people are not on because they haven't tried it with money. And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I've actually turned down working with a trust fund baby one time because I saw so many people leeching on her. And I was like, I can't be a part of this. This music is trash. Y'all don't listen, because even what I was going to charge was reasonable, but I was going to give them sound advice. But everybody in their camp was like, no, do this, do this, do this. I've worked with da da da. It's like, yeah, it's a shit show. Like, You could have
Oh my
trash
God.
music and millions of dollars and it's still not going to work.
Yeah, it's blood in the water. Every time there's someone who doesn't understand the music business who jumps in and is like, cool, I'm ready. Because I think people's perception is that the music business is so easy to conquer. They're on the outside looking in, it looks fun, and they're looking at all these people and they have these small minds because they don't understand how it works. They don't understand how fans consume music. They don't understand that music they might like might not be commercially viable, and they don't understand that music they hate might really appeal to certain demographics of millions of people. And so they're on the outside looking in. They're like, oh, this Lil Nas X song is trash. I could make something like that. I just need money. When in reality, the song's actually good and catchy, and he's been building up a fan base for a while, and people are activated. So they come in and they're like, okay, cool, I'm ready. I'm gonna show all these idiots in the music business exactly how it's done. They don't know the first thing about how the music business operates because it's so unique. And then you see, promoter over here, publicist over here, artist over here, manager over here, um, consultant here, consultant there, and they're all rushing in, and they're all more than willing to take this person's money based on their delusions about how the music business works. And I just saw it very recently, and it was a I tried to help. You know, I didn't charge for my time. I tried to help. People don't want to listen, and
They don't want to listen.
it's just because they perceive the music business as one thing, as this easy, very simple thing. And we are dealing with some pretty complex stuff. We're dealing with marketing. We're dealing with consumer behavior. We're dealing with the psychology of potentially millions of consumers who listen to the music. We're dealing with the artist subjective. There are all these X factors. It is not straightforward. You can't predict it. You can't, I know the financial sector is difficult, but as Dame always says, they have data, they have metrics, they have, um, ways to predict the future returns on certain investments. It's really hard to do in the music business.
Yeah.
But speaking of
Because
hit songs,
you can't buy the fans. That's
no,
the
you
thing.
can't. You can't. And people
That's the
swear
factor
you
that
can.
that's the factor. You could buy all the tastemakers, which you can't because even those are getting more and more fickle. They're like, you could if you could buy all the tastemakers and put people on every playlist, every radio station, every chart, you will get plays, but you can't buy a success rate. You can't buy sustainability. All you have to keep spending that type of money to sustain it. And it's like nobody's gonna do that. And I think that people don't realize that's why you see an artist blow up. They have a crazy album, they have a follow-up, and they go to a different label or they leave their label, and you're like, oh, why did they flop? It's like because the money left. They were buying all of that shit. And if you can't sustain, if you've never created a fan base, you can't sustain the pop. So money is definitely not all it takes. You do need money 100% to make it in this industry. When I was young and dumb, I used to be like, oh, it could be all organic. No, you need money to make shit pop in this industry, but sustainability comes from true art that connects with fans. Even if you disagree with it and you don't like it, it's connecting with somebody.
Here's what I find interesting about the data that we just looked at. So, on the one hand, we're seeing that um, recently there's an increase in 1 week hits, and there's a decrease in 20-week hits, right? So staying power is decreasing. But what I find funny is that when I look at the longest charting Hot 100 songs of all time, they're damn near all recent. So Glass Animals, that was very recent. Blinding Lights, that was recent. I'm trying to look at what else. Most weeks spent on Billboard Hot 100. Heat Waves, Glass Animals, Blinding Lights, The Weekend, Radioactive, Imagine Dragons, Sail, AWOL Nation, Levitating, Dua Lipa. Okay. So if we look at all of these, Heat Waves, Blinding Lights, Levitating, Save Your Tears, at least those are from the streaming era. So it's not this clear connection between streaming. Huh?
Almost all of those are from the streaming era. I think the Sheryl Crow and Party Rock Anthem, and I think the One Republic song. But I feel like even Sail, even though it wasn't the height of streaming. I remember buying that on like iTunes, and then like I remember also listening to it on Rhapsody when I had Rhapsody before Spotify was really big. So I feel like Sale kind of overlapped a little bit, but most of those do seem like streaming era songs.
Okay, fair enough. Because Sale did come out in 2011, and Spotify launched the same year, so there was already a precedent for streaming set at that point. But you were also an early adopter when it comes to streaming. You were on
Yeah, I
Rhapsody.
was doing streaming before Spotify.
Yeah.
I was streaming on, yeah, Rhapsody. I think back in 2009 or 10. Like I remember when Spotify announced and they were talking about streaming, and everybody's like was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "I've been streaming music." Back then you could only buy us like at first you could buy 10 unlimited streams per month. That's when it first came out. So you choose the 10 songs that you wanted to listen to unlimited, and then it was like I think $3.99, and then you everything else you had to like buy, and then it transitioned to like I think like 100 songs. Then it was unlimited, and I was like, still, it was before Spotify though.
Well, and then there was also a period when the industry didn't know what the hell to do with streams. And so I wonder if I have a theory about that, but let me get back to something else. So there was another article in Billboard that seeks to explain these trends. And this is, I don't know. Oh, Chief Operating Officer at RCA, John Fleckenstein, says that this trend has been developing over years and believes that all these charts and all this data we're looking at just actually reflects in an accurate way the way people have always listened to music. So he says, I would imagine if you looked at someone's consumption, it looks a bit like a bell curve where they start to discover the song and they start to get excited about it and they listen to it a lot for a period of time. But I think when you do that across millions of people, you see this very long tail and you see songs last a very long time. And that's what you're seeing on the charts. So you are seeing some songs last, but because of the increase in streaming, now I think that curve might be changing where there is some sort of hysteria for a trending song that people aren't necessarily in love with because of the song or the artist, but because of the trend. And so that artist gets this boost in streams, enough for them to chart on the Billboard for a week. But if that trend doesn't have staying power, then neither does the song. And I'm upset because like, we had the number one, and this goes to show to the people on the outside looking in how this works. We had the number one trending TikTok song for a week, and I don't believe, and this was with the rodeo challenge. We did not hit the Hot 100. I don't believe. So that's because there's not always and we still could but there's not this crossover the way people think there is. If you trend on TikTok, we may have millions and tens of millions of plays on TikTok, but TikTok isn't reporting those plays to Billboard. Spotify does. So we would have needed to get all those people from TikTok over to Spotify or over to Tidal or any one of these services that actually reports and counts as a sale. And
Yeah,
so
there's massive YouTube or TikTok songs that I've never
yeah,
heard of.
this is why I don't get into conversations with people who claim that music is all trash now, because they start using these metrics that they themselves don't even believe in. Because they'll say stuff like, oh well, this is just proof. Songs don't have staying power on the Billboard top 10, but 5 minutes prior they were saying all these hit songs are trash. So is Billboard a respectable and accurate metric of a good song, or is it just more trash, like you said? So do hit songs equate to good music? I have two theories. This could mean that people are listening to more diverse music. And because they're doing that, because they have so many options now, rather than just rally around one artist and follow the crowd, they're just listening to other music. And therefore, there's not all of that concentration on streams for one song. I think people have more options. This is probably better for unsigned artists, independent artists. The other thing too is a single stream doesn't count as a single sale. So the math is just off. And it's gonna be, people are saying this is more accurate. At least we have data now. We didn't before. When you would buy an album in a store, no one could track how many times you listened to that album. And you didn't get paid for listens after you bought that album. That was it. With streaming, it's different.
This is the hard thing about music too. It's like the rules are changed so regularly that you have to just be super solid in your business acumen. You know what I'm saying? To where
Yeah.
it's like, one, you're paying attention to the trends and you're paying attention to what's going on, but you're also focused on building out, again, a fan base. Because if you have to consistently flip and flop with the industry, I would say that it changes, right? Like their trends change. It's like yearly, and then every 3 years, and then like every 7.5 years. And then there's especially social trends that change like every 3.5 months. So if you are like super locked into these things, which is why I kind of agree, it's like a bell curve. Like if you don't catch stuff when it's on the way up or at the top, and you're always catching stuff on the bottom or the back end, you're typically a naysayer. Like, see, that's why everything is so and like I caught discovery mode when it was in beta, and a lot of people were like, no, 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 yada, yada, yada. And I was like, I'm trying this thing out. We don't make any money anyways. Let's look at it as a marketing spend. I caught it here, 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 here. We are in discovery mode right now, and it is definitely here. So now people are like, see, discovery mode sucks. We don't get paid, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, that is also true, but it didn't used to suck. TikTok is on the bottom end. I think it's about to have a reemergence because there's so much conversation around it. But TikTok, if you got on, especially mid 2020 into 2021, even the back half of 2021, you were seeing your stuff deliver, right? TikTok is still a factor for outliers, but for the vast majority of people on the platform, if you were consistent, you would see a pop if you got on between 2020 and 2021. But again, a lot of naysayers are also very late to getting on board with stuff. So I feel like even this thing where it's like, okay, the consumer trend is different. There's not this many top 10 hits. If I'm looking at the data, it doesn't actually look like it's saying what the people are trying to make it say. It looks like it's in a low point, but it's about to go back up. We're just relearning what consumers want. Gen Z is informing most of our consumer trends right now. We already know they have a shorter attention span. We already know that they're not as interested in things as we are. They're not even as interested in consuming music. They're more interested in consuming media. So if we're looking at everything according to music, when we had way less media to consume, then we're going to be stuck, which is why TikTok artists blow up, because they're consuming the media around the music. And older artists are struggling to have some of those same moments, but can still tour and sell out an arena because they have a solid fan base. So I think it's just a different way of looking at it. Again, business acumen. You got to kind of just decide, like, from what side of this am I going to look at it? If you look at everything as discouraging or assume that everything is bad news, it will be. If you look at it as something that's an indicator or a marker or a denoter, then that's exactly what it will be. So to me, this denotes exactly what a lot of us have believed about the industry. It doesn't really scare me, but I will also say Wendy Day comes from like old music industry, and so like her thought process on this, and she still survived, not even survived, thrived. So major respect and props to Wendy Day. I'm not saying anything's wrong with the way that she processes this, but she's coming from living through multiple iterations of the music industry. So this trend may be more disconcerting to her than it is to me, because I started in the music industry when CDs were a thing. And then I lived through the streaming era, and I'm living through the TikTok era. As my career goes, the trends accelerate how, like, more quickly, and they last shorter. Whereas when she started, it would be, something was like this for 10 years. Okay, then 7 years, then 5 years. For me, it's been like 5 years, 3 years, 2 months.
Yeah, and we're gonna see a lot more change now because technology is really accelerating. And I've seen, I guess there were a couple people who had big platforms that more or less blamed producers for so like you said, you either look at this situation as good news or bad news or neutral news. I kind of choose to look at everything from a neutral perspective and just try it out to see what my actual experience is. I think the people looking at it, or at least framing it for the purpose of getting some attention, if they're looking at it as bad news, then their their opinions are contentious. And one of some of the people framing this downward chart hit song trend as bad news, one of those perspectives is that I don't know why, but that it's the fault of the people making the beats. And I've seen some. I do want to make a more thorough reply to one video in particular about this, because I think it's an interesting conversation. And people have been saying all music sounds the same for a while, and so as part of that, all beats sound the same, right? So like everyone's making the same beats, everyone's just doing what's popular. To kind of dovetail off of that, and this was a little while ago, I posted some motivational producer stuff. Sometimes I post some early morning producer motivation on social media. And it's funny to see, I think my post had something to do with producers having faith in themselves and in their journeys. And it's funny in a tragic sort of way to see the producers reply and talk themselves out of consuming that motivation. Like you wake up in the morning and you read someone tweet, oh, you can do it, take control of the day, you're in charge of your own destiny. And then someone will reply, no, I'm not. No, I can't. Fuck you. I'm trash. Like this is so weird. So one producer replied, and this is a direct quote: the only thing is that it's not about the music anymore. It's about popularity. And if you aren't making what's popular or look the part or know the right people, odds are stacked against you. I'm not even going to argue that in order to be popular in music, it has to do with popularity, because it does. What I'm going to ask is, how is this different from the music business 30 years ago? The stars of hip hop 30 years ago had a sound, they had a look, they knew the right people. That's how it is. And that's not to discourage you. If you don't know the right people, meet the right people. If you don't have the right sound, develop your sound. If you don't have the right look, figure out what look is authentic to you and go for it. But be intentional about it. There weren't super popular music artists, especially not in rap, in the 90s, who made what I would consider weirdo music. And I don't mean that as a bad thing, because I listened to a lot of weirdo music, especially in the 90s. In fact, I think rap nowadays is far more open to diversity. And you see a lot of backlash for that. Like even, opinions about 6ix9ine aside, the fact that he just had rainbow colored hair pissed people off. Some of it to me is neutral. Like, there are rappers who paint their nails, like NBA Youngboy, and I think, right? And there are the rappers who sing over their beats, and people are like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I'm like, whatever, man. That wouldn't have been popular in the early 90s. So now I'm looking at it kind of like it's a novelty, where I'm like, damn, look at everything that's going on. There's so much diversity out there in the way music sounds and the way the people making the music look. But on the bad side, there are like literal white supremacist rappers who use the hard R in their rap songs, making black music as racist. So that's not, and they're rich off of the black art form. I will never support that. I'm drawing a hard line there. But what I think all of this goes to show, for better or for worse or both, um, is that I completely disagree with the narrative that this current era is all about homogeneity and it's just a popularity contest, and in order to get popular you just have to follow the trend and make the same thing. Also, I reject the narrative that back in the old days, the so-called old days, all you had to do was be dope. You didn't have to network, you didn't have to be popular, you didn't have to look a certain way. I don't know where people were in the 80s and 90s. Fashion, I mean, the 80s and 90s, Prince, Madonna, what? Fashion and look were important. They've been that way. So I just learned, for example, and then networking. Of course, you needed to know people. I learned, for example, that, and it was, I didn't know she had died so tragically, but Leslie Gore. I didn't know that Quincy Jones discovered her, and that happened pre hip hop. So it's like when you consider how music, and this was 60s, I believe, when you consider how things were done back then, it was still networking. It was still making music that people liked. That's how things become popular. So,
But that's literally all of life, but
yeah.
especially in art. Like, I'm a huge Basquiat fan, and I like went to his family has one exhibit up that's been traveling right now that it's actually his family is releasing artwork that's never been released. All the money is coming back to them. So like I supported it because there's a lot of people, just using his emblems and I don't really enjoy it.
Yo,
But
Basquiat's aesthetic is all modern visual art, especially in the world of like hip hop, EDM, rock. That's it. That's his style. And
yes,
it's
like
just, it's
we're
a whole
we're
era.
all living in Basquiat's imagined world. I think if people understood that, I'm like a huge Jean-Michel fan, but he like everybody thought he was this super aloof to himself. That's how I've been a fan of him since I was a child, like literally a child. I remember watching a thing on him on PBS, so I was like, oh, he was a recluse and okay, so I go to this exhibit and there's a whole like they built a whole club for you to go into, which is like this club he used to go to in New York. And they have hundreds of pictures of him at because he like essentially lived at this club, which I was like, what? Like so blown away. But they said like he would go and they would have to drag him out most days because he would be so drunk or because he didn't want to leave. But there's like Andy Warhol. There's like Donald Trump. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, not Donald Trump, but just like one of the Bushes and like all these people that he's like NBA basketball players. And I'm like, oh, this is how he is the icon that he is now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because he was so young when he passed. I always wondered, how did he get to this if he was such a recluse? Did somebody just discover the artwork in a basement? No. Like, whatever delusions of grandeur that you have about greatness just suddenly being discovered, they're all lies. Yes, that happened to Van Gogh, I think, but also what era was that? It was like 1700s. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're talking about somebody since the mid 1900s, we're talking about 1930s, 1940s on, it all came down to who you know, who you knew, the networks. That's why people join, and I'm not even trying to get into the secret society stuff, but that's why people join fraternities and sororities and all sorts of social groups so that they get the network so that whatever they believe in gets to escalate through the network. So anybody I think people would be floored. People who don't understand that it is literally all about your network would be floored to discover that every one of your favorites had somebody that they were related to or knew or met, and it just kept happening. Even for me, like I understand that I'm not the most gifted person. The reason that I get the positions and the opportunities that I get is because people like me. So in a way, I'm popular. And then as I navigate through life, I continue to network with people. And then I meet somebody who knows who I am from somebody else. And it's a domino effect. I'm a way more effective executive because so many people know me. There are people who are more talented, who have more credits, who have worked on more projects, who get less access to people than I do because I'm outside. I go to conferences, I talk to people, I'm pitching for meetings, and I think that if you are trying to use that as some sort of false gatekeeper to be like, well, it's not really about talent. It has never been. It's
Never.
every president, every politician, every chef who owns a major restaurant. When people say they got it out of the mud, part of that process is the community that they built. Go buy my ebook. I explain this process. You're dense if you don't believe this is how the world works.
Well, and even Van Gogh had friends who, you know, coincidentally are all celebrated artists. Not all of them, but Gauguin, like a lot of them. And back, if we flip it back to music and we're talking about classical music, all those composers were trying to be socialites. They were being commissioned by,
The princes and
aristocrats.
the kings, and
Yeah,
yes,
and they were feuding with each other. They had competitions going on. When music was premiered, there were, that was the music, that was the popular music of the time. It wasn't about sitting at home quietly by yourself in the dark listening to your family's pianist play the latest Beethoven song. You were at a ball, or you were at a opera, or you were at something incredibly social, all eyes on this particular musician's piece. There was a lot of social pressure. There's still a lot of social pressure. I think there's less social pressure because if you can just convince 1,000 people that your music is good and it speaks to people and you're a good person worthy of their interest and their energy and their money, then you can build yourself a career that is sustainable throughout your life. But having these conversations with people, it's just like, if you don't want your music to connect with people, then just say you don't want to be successful. Don't do all this, my music's not for everybody, or I just don't want to follow the crowd. You just don't want to try. You're just
just say you're
afraid.
scared.
Just say
You're
you're
scared.
scared. All it is people being scared. If someone says my beats aren't for everyone, okay, cool. But does that mean you're targeting the people they're for, or does that mean you're just giving up and saying this is the reason I'm not successful? Oh, it's probably the latter, unfortunately. You have a lot of people who say that. They're like, my music is just, I make music for myself. That's the big one. I make music for myself. Okay, cool. Then why are we talking? If you make music for yourself, go make music by yourself and be happy with that. But it's this internal struggle that we have where we know we're lying to ourselves about what our actual needs are, but we're trying to justify our own lack of effort and progress just by coming up with these narratives. And so there's just this collective deception, this collective self-deception. That's what these narratives are. It's collective self-deception. It's a damn shame, but at the same time, those of us who see through it are better for it, unfortunately. So we all have a choice which narrative to choose, and that's what as adults, that's the choice we make.
And let me encourage your narrative. If you believe, believe and support that with action.
Yeah.
I had a very, very vulnerable vlog that went up on my YouTube yesterday. And I don't have a lot. I have 50 subscribers right now. I just got to that point. But my video already has like 400 people looking at it. And I was like, wow, because I'm literally like, I don't know if I want to stay in the music industry anymore. That's the title. So people are like under it, encouraging me. Somebody tells me I need to get out of the satanic industry. And this one guy was like, just do it for fun. Be like me. Just make it a hobby. Don't put your effort and energy into this. It'll always let you down. And I was like, hey, man, I'm glad that works for you, but that is not for me. Like, it has to work. And so if you're somebody who is saying, nah, it's going to work for me, perfect, we're talking to you. I know a lot of times we're just like, y'all complain, get out of the industry, whatever. We're talking to the people who don't believe. But if you really believe, if you're spending any type of time and effort saying that it doesn't work because of this, if it's not there are pragmatic ways and practical ways to assess the industry. We do that all day, every day. But if you're more fixated on arguing with people about why it's not working, you don't really want it. Because if you would just be out here making it work. People tell me crazy shit all the time. People are like, "Oh, that's not going to work," or "You shouldn't do that," or "Why are you doing that?" I'm
Every
like,
popular artist, every successful artist has been told that's not going to work.
yeah.
That's their story.
Like,
That's just part of their that's part of their success story.
yeah. So for me, it's like if y'all hear this and you're like, y'all are always trying to deter us from being, yes. My thing is get out of the way if you're not really going to do this. But if you're going to do it, then bulldoze the hell out of this industry and go for it. It's like you are the master of your own fate. And if you really believe in it, then believe. I just get tired of the lukewarm people because all you're doing is cluttering our feet and wasting our time. Don't say, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then you're sitting here complaining. Do this shit. And I'm not saying you can't have heartache and heartbreak because that's me. That's what I was talking about in my video. I'm discouraged. But at the end of the day, I know my only option is to continue because I've invested way too much time, effort, and energy. And there's too many people behind me looking for me to push through. So I got to do it at this point. That's the urgency that we need with other people. We need other people believing that they can do it and doing it.
I think we should end on that note because that's incredibly motivational. So, Erinn, what's your YouTube channel so people can check out that video that's getting attention?
My YouTube channel is called Everything Erinn, or you can just do at the Erinn Effect, the same handles that I have on all socials. Yeah, so follow me on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, but mostly subscribe so I can get to 1,000 subscribers so I can make some money talking about my woes in this industry. Tell a friend to tell a friend.
I mean, that's what I do. So everybody subscribe to Erinn and catch you next week. I don't know who's gonna be on here. Might be Erinn, might be Dave, might be all three of us. We'll find out.
Yeah, I don't fly out till Thursday evening, I think, so I can be on next week.
Okay, we got Erinn back. All right. Leave a comment. Let us know what you want us to cover. Because seriously, a lot of this content here is comment driven, feedback driven. So if there's something you want us to cover, let us know. We appreciate it. Peace.